There he is.
What's up?
What's up,
Look
my
at
man?
You rustic, scruffy son of a bitch in the wood. What are you, in a cabin or something? You in a sauna?
You know, I'm in my backyard and I built this fucking thing.
Wow. Flex on him.
You know how I learned to build it? YouTube.
So you working with like high-powered machinery just straight off YouTube?
Yes.
Dude.
So I did construction when I was growing up, but I was always low man on totem pole. And when quarantine happened, you know, I've been kicked out of my line of work since March. And after about a month of sitting around feeling retired, I started going absolutely bonkers. Mm-hmm. So I got on YouTube and realized the internet could teach you anything. So I built this office.
Holy
Whoa.
shit,
Jake,
listen,
that's fucking nice, dude.
Are you fucking with me? This is for real? This is a real story?
Swear to God. And my idea of it is I didn't have any help from anybody. So the image of me roofing this was comedic.
I can imagine, yeah.
The amount of blunders was absolutely comedic, but I had the hours in the day. So today is the first day it's officially done. Now, I'm not going to lie, there is an ants problem. As we're talking, I've maybe been bit 2 or 3 times. We are going to flow past that. We're going to live in the good. We're going to live in the good.
I feel like, you know, people did what you just described, except they were like, look, I built a little desk or, you know, a little like tchotchke. You built a
house, dude. That's the bigger than my apartment.
I built an 8x12, 8-foot high structure with a slanted roof. The lowest point is 6 feet. The highest point is 8 feet.
That's fucking.
Were you?
I was gonna learn the ukulele. I didn't even strum that thing once. You built a house.
Are you? Were you handy though to begin with? Like, yeah.
So I grew up doing construction.
Right.
My mother had junk shops growing up, and my job was to always. We would go to like flea markets and buy old furniture, and then she and I would take them apart and rebuild them.
Got it.
But I was always, you know, as I said, low man. So my whole job in construction was I was on a crew where we were building sound studios in New York. All I did was the, insulation. So any job that nobody wanted to do.
I was gonna say the worst, right? That's the stuff that. I mean, I remember as a kid being told that'll give you cancer and make you scratch your skin off if you just.
I was covered from ankles to ears in plastic and Vaseline on the skin, but that's all I ever did. So this was the first job where I thought like, all right, there's nobody else, as well as it's hidden in like the back corner of my yard. So I always knew if it's a disaster, then it's just a pile of weird wood. And at any point I knew I could quit. Like,
yeah,
nobody was counting on it. It's not like I'm like, this is a home for my sick family member. No, it's just an ant den that I'm doing press on.
Did you feel accomplished afterwards? Like, did you feel like a man?
I have felt for a long time. The cowardice I felt about doing the roof and doing the rafters and the bird's mouth cuts.
I don't even know what the fuck that means, Johnson.
You just looked. Was that taught to you on YouTube? You just dropped a bird's mouth cuts on us?
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Let me dumb it down for you. But there's like certain moves that I had to do that I didn't realize as a 42-year-old father how the fear of God would enter my body about being on a roof and like using a hand screw and putting something into wood. But I would be up there and I would give myself so many self-talks of like, stop being a chicken shit. And then my hand would be like, oh God, I'm an actor. So once this is finished, this is the most proud place I am of my home. I'm like, all right, like I'm still here.
I'm sure you've got a beautiful, mansion over in the yard. I would live in that thing if I were you. That'd be like,
thank you for considering my economics as a mansion. Talk to my business manager.
I am not handy at all, and I blame my father because he is exceptionally handy. My dad could have built what you built. He built when we were kids. He built us a tree house that was more just like a freestanding. It had electricity, the whole nine. But I can remember when we were growing up, he would be, I remember I called it the damn hammer. That's what I thought a hammer was called, a damn hammer, because my dad would always be like, get the damn hammer. So I just, the damn hammer. But so that was always.
That's really true.
Swear to God,
The
it
damn
sounds like
hammer
a,
is
fucking,
hilarious.
a made-up script from a sitcom. I said to my mom, "Here's the damn hammer," and she was like, "Tim, we got to clean it up a little bit, pal." But I remember when we would be like, "Come on, son, we're gonna go build some shit." I would be messing up and screwing up, and he'd be like, "Just give it to me, let me do it," and I would never learn. So it's his fault. I'm just.
I got to tell you on that, because I've got 6-year-old twins, and it's really hard to be patient when the kid's fucking up. Because, I would get help here, and you're trying, the right move. Like, I know the move is, I've got 2 little girls, and I'm raising them to be handy. I'm raising them to be gritty. I'm raising them to just be 2 humans who can fight on planet Earth. So I go like, honey, do me a favor and grab me the nail. And then I'd go, that's a screw. You idiot. She'd go like, okay. And I'd be like, you have made my day significantly worse. And then you have to like take a breath and go, all right, this is actually, you are not my apprentice. The 40 minutes that you have the energy to stay out here, I'm not building for these 40 minutes. We're just hanging and kind of talking.
Right.
That take a breath is the worst, because like, yes, it's the smart thing to do, it's the right thing to do, and all that. But in that breath, before you exhale, you're just like, I'm a fucking lunatic. Like I'm an actual insane person.
I had a funny moment yesterday when you say the damn hammer thing. So I try to keep my language pretty good around my kids. Quarantine hasn't been the best for that. But the only time that I guess I say like hell or whatever is if somebody gets hurt. Like if they fight with each other, I'll say like, what the hell happened? Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it until yesterday. We were in the kitchen, and if you look here, you see a Band-Aid. I had one of those weird finger cuts where all of a sudden I looked and there was blood all over here, and I didn't know what happened. And I went like this, and my daughter walked up and she was concerned, and she just goes, Daddy, what the hell happened? And I'm like, first of all, why? And then I realized, whenever she's hurt and it seems serious, so for some reason I add in a hell, but I had to go like, that's not okay to say that.
How was the pandemic homeschooling, actor/dad? I mean, everything, it was a nightmare.
Takeaway actor. I have officially since quarantine, I am a stay-at-home dad, and I'm not a teacher. I respect what Max is doing, how he's doing it for pay. He's an Instagram teacher. But
he teaches for 5 minutes, just gets that clip and gets it out.
He uses the money he makes from Instagram, and he hires a teacher. That businessman is always scheming.
When we had Max on, we asked him a question, and he didn't skip a beat. Now, I have not super strong takes on this, actually, because I've waned with my opinion. I used to firmly believe that Nick should have ended up with Reagan, and in my current rewatch, because I rewatched New Girl nonstop. You guys, did you know when you were filming it, like you were going to be on the pantheon of sitcoms? Like once it hit Netflix, I feel like it really, really took off. It's whenever I tweet about Nick Miller, it goes viral almost every time.
That's really, I'll be honest with you. I think first of all, no, we didn't. The difference with New Girl, which was frustrating, was I think we all knew we had somewhat of a dream team. I think we had a great cast on that, and we had a killer crew. And Liz Merriweather as a showrunner is a monster creatively. And we had some killer writers. We were not a show that was widely loved while we were on. Mm-hmm. So the first season, we got a lot of attention and people liked it. And we had a moment of like, we could be one of those shows. But by season 3 and season 4, it was more when I would go out, people would go, you still doing that show? And I'm like, yes, asshole, it's on tonight. So it's forming a second life, but more, I think New Girl has always been niche. I think there's a group of people who love it, and to them it's huge, but there's still a huge population who have never heard of it and never will. And I mean, I guess that's more how everything is really fragmented, but New Girl has always been, in my opinion, very loud in a very small group.
I think you're underselling it now. I think that group has grown exponentially with everything. When it gets on streaming, it gets that second push. I don't know why I watched it. I watched the premiere, and like I wasn't really.
I don't know why I watched your stupid fucking show.
No, it was like I wasn't really. What's that?
With New Girl, it's the only thing I've ever done where, and I'm not saying you did this, Nick, but people for that movie, men, especially dudes, would always have to say, my girlfriend made me watch this fucking show, but here's what I will say. And I'll go, I don't need the first half. I'm in it. I like it.
Yeah. But it was like, I wasn't a big, I hadn't really watched many like network sitcoms in a while, but for some reason, like that just grabbed me. And I loved it episode 1. I would tweet about it almost every night. I'd be like, this show is unbelievably funny. Trust me, give it a shot. And everyone who watched it loved it. And then now that it's on streaming, I think everyone, like literally, I tweet about it all the time. And like every time I bring up Nick, it's like, I said you're a top 5, Nick Miller's a top 5 sitcom character of all time. And I firmly believe that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Nick's I'm a TV guy. So growing up, I cared more about TV than movies. Being on a sitcom that meant something was always kind of the main goal. For me, it was Cheers, it was Roseanne, it was Taxi. It was a certain type of American sitcom that we watched growing up and my whole family liked, and I wanted to be on that. New Girl, playing Nick in the moment of New Girl, he never felt like a character that anybody outside of the inner circle cared about. And what I mean by that is I could do Nick and improvise my ass off and make Max and Zoe and Damon laugh. But Nick wasn't the character of New Girl. It was there's Zoe, and then Schmidt was the breakout. And then, Nick and Winston started getting their wings as the show went on.
Really?
But so I think so.
See, I was right away. Nick was my guy. Nick, I think I find Nick to be an exceptionally relatable character, which probably says bad things for me. But but like everything about him, I'm like, oh, this guy, this is hilarious. Yeah. This is exactly how my brain works. This is perfect. I never thought that. I never felt like Nick was a secondary character.
I would be interested to hear what your castmates would say about that, because I think you're just being humble because it's your character. I think he's the guy.
Well, I'll put it like this. Neither Nick or Winston was ever nominated for anything.
Yeah,
well neither was Always Sunny. That we always say that every year with
Always Sunny never was?
Never been nominated for a thing.
For nothing. Not a thing.
Isn't that wild?
It's insane. They're on year 15.
And then this year, Lil Dicky Dave gets nominated for nothing. And
is that true? No, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I was saying that more just to try to create an argument for the sake of bullshitting. I've never given a shit about the awards. I've never watched them before I was in this business and post. But that's shocking about It's Always Sunny. I worked with Rob on Mythic Quest this year.
Yeah, that was a great show, but your episode was my favorite episode. It was unbelievable.
Was so deep and so different, and such a departure from the rest of that season. But I mean, that was some shit. You guys did some acting in that. Man.
I got to give Rob a lot of credit. I never knew Rob, so here's the truth of me doing that episode. They shot It's Always Sunny on the lot near us at New Girl, and New Girl did insane hours. So we were doing 12-hour days, 5 days a week to make 22 minutes of an improvised show, or a show not fully improvised, but a bit show. And they were rapping at lunch every day. So my big thing while I was on New Girl was I really wanted to make it one of those shows that we were the fun show. Mm-hmm. But what happened was we were all burning out, cast, crew, writers, everybody, Liz. So my whole thing was, how do we do a 7-hour day? Do basic coverage so that we are like It's Always Sunny. Because if so, we can maybe be on for 10 years because there is an energy that maybe we could keep this monster going. And so I always wanted to experience working with Rob or Charlie or Glenn. And then this Mythic Quest came along and Rob was directing it. And I thought, great. I finally get to see how Rob moves and how fast he goes. And I told my wife, I left the first morning and I was leaving at 6 a.m. And she goes, when do you expect to be home? And I'm like, with Rob fucking directing, I'll be home at noon.
Yeah, right.
We get there and it's going kind of slow. And I go to Rob at 10 a.m. when we're still on the first scene. I'm like, my guy, always sunny, Rob. What's going on here, Big Daddy? What are you thinking? And he goes, yeah, I'm really excited to shoot this one differently than I've ever done, especially this episode. It's going to be a movie. And the voice in my head, literally out loud to myself, it just said, you fucking dummy, you always lose. But I just had to lean it. And then he goes, not only that, but we're going to shoot out in Long Beach. So I'm like, oh, Long Beach for Fortune. So I got like some like shady hotel room nearby in a Econo Lodge. And I'm like, oh, fuck it. But I'm glad I did it because he's a monster talent. And I'm proud of being part of that.
Hey, it came out incredible. It is like it's a little movie, you know? I mean, it's some deep shit.
Rob's a creative monster. I didn't know that about him. I haven't watched Sunny as religiously as others. I've checked it out for the bits, and I think it's funny. But working with him on that, like, he's got a very clear vision. And I'm like, all right, this dude will be like, he's the real deal.
I never realized how much he had to do with. Not, I knew he was a creator of Sunny. I know, the whole story about like the first episode cost $200 to shoot and all that stuff. But I didn't realize. I think he was on Mark Maron's podcast, and I listened to it. And I didn't realize he does everything. Like, he's the showrunner of Sunny, which I didn't even know what a showrunner was until he explained it. But he's like the showrunner, the writer, producer. Like, he does all of it.
He's mostly also the studio. He's a super smart guy.
Mm.
Like he's playing the game. Like when I first started working with Joe Swanberg, I loved working with him so much because we were doing indies and we were self-financing them. And he was viewing the game differently. And talking to Rob's doing that, but he's doing that with major networks. And he's sitting at the table with network heads as a writer, as a showrunner, as an actor, as a director, as essentially the studio at times. It's really impressive, and it's not really talked about.
I had no idea.
Again, not a single nomination.
No, and I'm showing up on his set, and I'm not even fully memorized. I'm like, dude, we both have a lot on our plate. You're doing that. And last night, I should have done my homework more, but I was like watching TV. Have you seen like Listing Impossible? Because that's what
and he's super hot too, which like also isn't fair.
It's so annoying when he got ripped. That was so annoying.
Gentlemen, I don't care to talk about his attractive appeal. That's not why I'm on this.
It's almost exclusive what we do on this show.
You guys talk about punks.
The new show, totally different creative experience doing the animation. Which is that something you've done before? I feel like you got a great voice for it. If you haven't done it,
I played Peter Parker in Spider-Verse.
Oh, right, of course.
Right. Yeah. So I've done that. I did like little bits here and there. I did a show called Alan Gregory with Jonah Hill 7-8 years ago. I love animation, and I don't love it for the obvious reasons where it's quote unquote easier.
Yeah, I
love it because there's a lot about acting I really don't like, and a lot of it has to do with like I don't like going through hair and makeup. Through quarantine, I realized I'm going to try to never do a photo shoot again. I don't like, there's a whole part of acting where we have to be like actors / ugly models. Like where, we have to stand and have somebody go like more energy. And I'm going like, some actors can do it. And Mark Ruffalo can do it. And he's cool. I don't ever want to do it again. I don't like it. So voiceover cuts that out, and all you're doing is going into a booth. You have the material, the other actor's standing opposite you. They dim the lights, so it's you in a little spot, them in a spot, and you get to perform. And so I love that aspect about it, and that's what pulled me into wanting to do hoops. And wanting to produce was really for me, because this is Ben Hoffman's vision more than anything. I wanted to have a big say in how we did it, in terms of recording alone or recording with others. And I wanted to have a big say in casting. So you were, because I know a lot of them, sometimes you're alone, you're not with the other. I tried to do it with people as much as we could. There are just times with scheduling, it couldn't work. Right. But all the main cast, I did at least the first few episodes for us to find the tone. We would do it together. And so the premise here is like kind of a grizzled high school basketball coach looking to make it big. And it's Bad News Bears meets Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's a really hard R.
What a sell.
That is,
that's what that's kind of how I feel like it at its core. Like Ben Hoffman's sense of humor is he takes little moments and keeps heightening and heightening and heightening and heightening. And I think that's where his funny really comes from, which is Curb-esque. And then the Bad News Bears is obviously I'm the coach of a team of losers, and I really want to be a winner, but I'm just not a winner. So, it's a really loud show. It's really R-rated, but I think it's really funny, and it's quote unquote offensive. I think that'll be the soft backlash until people watch it. But I don't think it's offensive to any specific group.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just loud. And so some people I don't think will like it by the nature of it. And that's fine. What I tell to those people is you have so many other things to watch. If you don't like it.
So you're like
bracing.
You're kind of already bracing for a bit of like a backlash, as you said.
No, I'm not, hopefully not. But in 2020, everybody is so divided and so opinionated. And the whole core of this show, the only reason I wanted to do it was I just feel like it'd be nice to do something that is not smart, not deep, has no message, and is just for bits. Mm-hmm. Ben and I, when we were first talking about it, we were both in the comedy scene when we were first coming up. And 5-6 nights a week, I'd be on a different stage doing improv. And all you were thinking of doing is entertaining the people on stage and then being funny backstage with the other performers. And it was all bits for bits' sake. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily want every project to be a message or a statement or to have depth to it. I like that some projects do, but I do think entertainment can unify and say, you don't need to know my politics. You don't need to know where I stand on this. You are allowed to vote for somebody who I detest, and I'm allowed to vote for somebody who you detest. And we can both think this moment is funny, and maybe we can see it as funny together.
Preach, man.
That's what I'm hoping. I don't know if it'll happen.
It's crazy that needs to be considered like a profound statement, but it really is. And it's something that like everybody has lost sight of. And I commend you for even trying to do it. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's even like attainable because the world is so.
But here's what I hope. There will be people who hate this show from the left. There will be people who hate this show from the right. That's
good.
Fun.
That's when you know you did something right.
What I'm hoping for is there's a lot of people in the middle who go, yeah, Hoops is really stupid. It's not a great show. They're right. There's a lot of dick jokes. There's a lot of vagina jokes. There's a lot of every joke by every gender and every race. And what we're hoping for is people go, yeah, I smoked a joint. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I liked it. I don't have any deep thoughts about it. It was funny.
I love how you like said it like that, where it's just like, I do feel like everyone who's kind of coming up now, as far as like comedy or comedians or podcaster, like everything has to have that like deep moment, that statement they're making where it's like, no man, we're just fucking joking about dicks. That's it. It's yes, you're right. It's sophomoric and it's stupid, but it's making me laugh today.
But it is, so what we really tried to do, and I don't know if we pulled it off, but we tried to not offend any specific group. And what we tried to do is if we were going too hard at one thing, to make sure that the other group got it equally. Mm-hmm. So the big thing that I wanted to do in this was casting. So everybody we cast is a gunner. There's no weak link. There's nobody we cast because their name would help sell it. Meaning, if it's me and Wriggle and I'm going hard at Wriggle, well, Wriggle's coming hard at me. Cleo King, who plays the principal, the reason we cast her was because she did New Girl, and she used to kill Nick. So we would go back. She did the one where she was the cop and Nick was lying. And
an all-time scene. An all-time scene.
So that's Cleo King. And so while we were doing this, and Ben was saying, I want a principal. She's got to be really tough. I'm like, I've got the person. It's Cleo. And as long as we can improvise together, so we would go in the booth and we would say that, Cleo King, what she likes to do is she calls it letting it rip. So she'd be like, let me make this clear. Am I allowed to let it rip? And I'd be like, yeah. And then she'd be like, you motherfucker. And just unleash comedy. And so for that, it was really fun to do. And, I truly hope people get a lot of laughs out of this show, because that's the whole point of it. This is just have a beer, watch a show. Hopefully you laugh.
You mentioned improv a couple times now. Did you get on Middleditch and Schwartz?
What is get on their show, or did I watch it?
No, did you watch it? Are you a fan of it?
No, I have. I know Ben Will.
It's incredible. If you, obviously you would probably fit right in perfectly with them, but you got to give it a
I improvise. So Ben used to do a show called Snow Pants or something like that, and years ago, season 1 of New Girl years ago, I did his show and Thomas was in it, and those two dudes were murdering at such a level that, and when you're on stage and you do a scene and there's laughs, and then another person comes in and then there's another level of laughs. I was like, oh, Thomas, and I didn't know who he was yet. It was before his HBO show. Yeah. But I was like, oh, this dude's a murderer. And then he and Ben together, I was like, oh, so I haven't seen the show, but I know that those two are doing it. And I was not shocked that it's successful.
I'd never seen. We interviewed Ben for he was promoting Sonic like before the pandemic, and he was telling us about Middleton Schwartz. He was telling about I was going to come out, and I told him I'd never seen improv, never once in my life.
Haven't?
No, I hadn't. And he was like, good. He's like, don't ever go see it. I want your first experience to be like, I want to see what it's like if your first experience is our show. And it was unbelievable. I very much enjoyed it.
Ben is a comedic killer.
Mm-hmm. He's unbelievable. We've actually like become fairly friendly with him. Like he's been on the show probably 3 times since then. He just like wakes up in LA and he's like, let's do a Zoom. And he eats his cereal during it. It's wild. But he was like just getting to know him a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, you are. I kind of just thought of him as John Ralphio, which I feel like it's probably a whole actor's fall in where you just get kind of, it's not typecast, but just people imagine you as such a character. And I'd always just thought of him as kind of like the crazy zany guy. And the stuff I've seen from him recently is just, it's otherworldly.
He's a killer. He actually, I believe this is accurate, but for the pilot of New Girl, when we had formed our cast, before you shoot it, you have to do one last table read in front of the network before they fully release the money. And we had not figured out who Coach was yet. And I believe Ben Schwartz came in and read that part.
No shit.
Just as a favor to like make sure it got financed.
Really?
I know Ben did one of those early on, and I think it was that one.
Very cool. Well, listen, the way you speak about everybody else being a comedic killer and being talented, you're on that list too, bud. You are. It sounds like you're too humble to ever admit it, but rest assured, you are right there on that list as well. So
I remember when I did like one of my Nick Miller tweets, and someone replied like, "That's the greatest physical actor of our generation," and I was like, you know what? I think he's right. It was. I honestly think it was a reply to the scene where you were lying and you said, by the way, on that real quick, do frogs really die if you feed them? Was it cereal? that felt like a personal like anecdote you threw in. Like
a lot of I will say a lot of those improvs were either alts or just improvised. But one that I know that people will ask like, how similar are you to Nick Miller? And the truth is like, I am and I'm not with every character I play. I look like him, I sound like him, and when I'm allowed to improvise, it's the bullshit that comes out of my own brain. But a lot of it is not. It's bullshit. But one improv I did is Nick that has come back to life that I keep hearing is I'm not convinced I know how to read. I've just memorized a lot of words. Yeah. And the reason I know that to be true is in my saddest, deepest moments, I still am not sure I know how to read. And it's really come back again with trying to teach my kids because they're, entering first grade. So we'll like look at words and I'll go like, and I really know I don't know how to read because I can't sound out words I've never heard. So if I've never heard a word, like let's say armadillo, right? Let's say I'd never heard it and I've seen it live. A normal person's going to say like armadillo. Mine might be armadillico. And I'm like, that has to be because I don't fundamentally know how to fucking read. So I don't think I know how to read, but I think I have an insanely good memory of words.
That explanation kind of sounds like me in water. Like I'm not convinced I know how to swim. I just think I cannot die in water.
That's exactly right. But there's a difference. Knowing how to swim means something. So if you can tread water and move around in water, it's not swimming.
It's not swimming.
Right.
I'm not officially reading. So like I'll sit and I'll read a book, right? Like I'm reading Vonnegut right now, Hocus Pocus. I'm not really reading it. I'm just saying all the words I've memorized together and then trying to find meaning to them.
That is unbelievable.
Cool, man. All right. Well, so the new show is Hoops on Netflix. The cast is great. Oh, we're about to talk to Natasha like right after this. Anything?
Natasha's a killer.
Anything we should drop on her? Any little tidbits or jokes you got for us?
No, not really. Just, honestly, I was so happy she did the show. I'd been a fan of hers for so long. And, going back to the thing, the wife character, the ex-wife, if you don't get a comedic killer who can just improvise in the booth, that's a boring character who's kind of a victim to Coach's tyrant behavior. The beauty of someone like Natasha is even if the scene wasn't written well, she's going to improvise and make it funny. And if we're in the booth together, it was one of those parts, once she said yes, we knew we didn't have to worry about that character because we knew it was going to be funny.
The show is Hoops. It's on Netflix. Comes out August 21st. So everybody go watch it. And thanks as always for the time.
By the way, before you go, we got to ask you one quick question that we asked Max, and he didn't skip a beat on his response. I'm wondering what yours is. Who should Nick have ended up with?
Right, I think he would end up with Jess.
Yeah, I think so too. I had this vision of Reagan, and then I'm rewatching it. I'm like, actually, their relationship wasn't that good. I thought for some reason I thought it was great, but it wasn't.
Well, what I think will happen in that era was it was really fun in that show to have all new energy.
Right.
Because I remember before she came in, Zoe was gone because she was having a baby. Mm-hmm. So there was a bunch of episodes where you realize when you take a cast and you take out the lead character and replace it, it was a really trippy experience where you're like, well, it just changes everything. Like every dynamic was different.
Yeah, because I never thought of New Girl as even having a lead. I thought I found it very Sunny-esque, which I guess is what you wanted, where everyone was incredibly important. There wasn't one character who was like the star, but everyone was the star.
From the inside, it felt very different for us. For us doing it, we were on Zoe's show. And then as it got going, it became all of our shows. But it was called New Girl. So for us in it, we knew what when the network wanted to really promote it, they put Zoe's the one. And I really don't think she's gotten enough credit for that show. It was her face across the country. Mm-hmm. She lifted that show up. The reason everybody watched that pilot and gave the show a chance is her. So eventually everybody else shined, but Max, Lamorne, myself, Hannah, without Zoe carrying the weight, that first 6 episodes, we're canceled.
Yeah, that's true.
But so inside, I think we all and we all had to audition for Zoe, and Zoe had to say yes to all of us.
Really?
Sure. I did a chemistry read with Zoe where I was essentially auditioning for Zoe. We did the scenes from the pilot where she and I have chemistry. And then she and I texted, and we're both kind of like, she's like, let's make this happen. And I'm like, thank you very much,
man. That's
my boss.
That's a life changer right there. Thank God she did it. So great stuff, man. Thanks as always, and good luck.
Always fun talking to you.
Catch you later, bud.